All right. Okay. So we do the intro, all the nice things, the music, the flair, la da da. Okay, sister. So, you guys, this is guest X. I feel like everyone's been like, who is this? Who is this? Who is this? Jessica's someone I have followed on TikTok online for a fairly scary amount of time. And I finally was like, all right, I want her in front of my audience. And so you guys got the background, but hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? I'm so happy and excited to be here.
Good, and me too. I'm excited. We're giving them all the tea. We're giving them the good, the bad, and the tips. So first and foremost, tell them and me a little bit about your background. Meaning, like, how was your childhood? How were your parents? Do you have any siblings? Who was baby Jessica before this Jessica?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think back on that. So I'm Jessica Sloan. I'm originally from Australia. I grew up in a city called Brisbane in the state of Queensland. I am the eldest of 4 children. So I kind of have always had that very much like nurturing, my siblings always used to say like I was their second mom, which I think serves me well now in my career. But when I was younger, they hated it. So
You're like, no.
yeah, they were like, leave us alone. Like, we have one mom, you can just be quiet. But that's just my nature. And yeah, it was a great childhood. My parents are still together to this day. I was extremely fortunate and extremely blessed to have like a lot of opportunities, from my parents. I was super athletic growing up. I played honestly like every sport underneath the sun, from water polo to badminton to tennis to swimming to like literally AFL, like, which is one of Australia's like bigger sports.
Yeah.
So just like did piano lessons. I did. I was really, really lucky. My parents worked really, really, really hard, sent me to great schools. And I obviously didn't want to let them down. I think the most interesting thing, like I've always worked from a very young age. I started working when I was 13 at a swim school as their receptionist. Like it was the swim school I was swimming at, and I was a very competitive swimmer. So I think one thing my parents, especially my mom, like always instilled in me was like, you need to work, like you need to get a job. And if you want to spend money, like I would always want to go into the city on the weekends and go shopping. And mom would be like, okay, well, you don't have money. So like you need to go get a job. And then when I started making money, she's like, okay, you have money now. Like you need to spend your money. So I kind of learned the balance of like work hard, play hard. And if you want to spend on things, you need to like work to have money to spend on those things. So I think just having that kind of, I want to call it like a mantra, in a way, like it built in me quite young, I've always had a great work ethic. And I think to this day, like from all the accomplishments I've done, at my age, I'm only 27. Like I feel that has probably been one of the most important pillars of my life. But by no means did I ever want to be like an entrepreneur or like I never had that like entrepreneurial in me. I always wanted to like be a big CMO, like an exec, at a big company or something. And over the years, that's kind of changed. Just with, I have my hands in like so many different things now. But yeah, that Jessica is definitely very different to this Jessica. But yeah, always been like pretty confident, like pretty outspoken, always kind of, sometimes I'm a know-it-all, so I got to work on that too. But it does me well in business. But yeah,
I feel like 27, I'm 27 too. And sometimes I think I'm like, oh my God. Now I'm talking to people who were born in like 2000. I'm like, I'm old, and then I'm like, wait. I feel like I've only gotten hotter, smarter, richer. So I'm like, maybe getting older is not as bad.
Right. They always say like your 30s are your best, and like we're almost at our 30s, So
I'm like, it actually could be true.
I think it is, to be honest, based on the trajectory that we both had over the last couple of, like years.
Yeah. And I'm like, people always say like, if you could go back like to 18, would you go? And I'm like, if I couldn't change anything, hell no. I was broke, busted, disgusted. Like, no. Amazing. Okay. So let's first dive into the juicy juice. A lot of people, obviously, I feel like, especially during COVID and then now, step into the creator entrepreneur field, influencer, UGC, entrepreneur, whatever. So obviously you deal with a lot of influencers of lots of capacities. So tell me your worst influencer story. Like, what was a story that made you think like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Oh man. There's probably been so many,
Really?
like influencers they're different. Like it's a special type of person to be an influencer. And I'm very fortunate that I'm pretty good at reading people so I can like tell who is and who isn't. But I think when I first got into my career, I was kind of like, I need to work with everyone. Like I need a network. Like I need to know this, I need to know that. And I came across this influencer who was just kind of like very entitled and very like she had a couple she had a couple million followers. She blew up when she was younger,
Okay.
and she kind of died off for a little. She took some time off social media and then she came back and had these millions of followers, but just after not posting, we all know the algorithm kind of like
Yeah.
dropped you off, and she just wasn't getting good engagement. And I started kind of like seeing her stuff and like working with her and thinking she had great content. She seemed lovely. And then as we started like working a little closer together, one day her engagement on her page just kind of like started changing. And I was like, oh, like that's interesting. That's kind of, it wasn't like this yesterday. And now it's really, really good. So
Right.
in line of work, I try, or even just in general, like I try my best not to assume. Like I just think that assumption is one of the worst things you can do in any area of your life. So including this, I kind of just probed her with questions on like, did you do anything? Like, AKA, did you buy followers? Like, did you buy likes? And it's okay if you did, just like tell me, because I'm working with brands on your behalf and I need to know what's going on, because her rates were just astronomical. Like we're talking like celebrity kind of like rates, like high 5 figures for an Instagram post, like $60,000 just for like an LA girl influencer.
So really quick, when you say like influencer or celebrity rates, high 5 figures, obviously $60,000, right? We hear people like Alex Earl who are charging 80,000, right? And obviously she has become probably more now. That was probably a year ago. Obviously she has become a celebrity, a massive icon. But would you say that something that a lot of people maybe miss is that there is a difference between 3 million followers as a celebrity and 3 million followers when you're kind of like a normal person, an LA girl? Like, would you say that people kind of think they're the same thing when they're not?
Yeah, there's such a difference. Like if you are an actress, a singer, this or that, if you are a public figure and you have influence, like outside of just your Instagram page, you have a right to be charging more. There's credibility behind your name. Whereas you're just, and this is no shade to influencers, but if you're an influencer with 3 million followers posting pretty photos and like sharing what you do in your life, like you're just a regular person talking about your life. And as is that actress, but they have also done XYZ and they have a lot more to them. So there is such a difference. And I've worked with a lot of celebrities, like more specifically, a lot of athletes. And obviously like that type of clientele is again, different rates to even just a celebrity and then just an influencer. So, and like the topic of rates is just probably one of the most asked questions I get day in and day out is like, what do I charge? How do I charge? And I could go on a tangent for forever.
Ooh, we're gonna get into it, ladies. We're gonna get into it.
Yeah, it's such a hard question to answer. But yeah, to circle back, like just with that specific influencer, she was just extremely in her head about herself, and her ego was so inflated that she became very difficult to work with, because I cannot let's humble ourselves, and like I cannot go to a brand and act like you are XYZ or some superstar when you're just a regular influencer living in LA posting about her life. So that's, in those moments, I'm kind of like, where is your common sense? Like what do you really think? And I'm all for confidence and I'm all for like, boosting somebody up and making them feel good. But like, let's also just be realistic and think like, I'm going to look like a freaking idiot if I go to a brand and pitch you with that kind of rate, because what are they going to get for that? You know what I mean? Like a pretty post. It's just not there. Again, this is such a deeper conversation, but it's just not do in this
So
space.
in that moment, did you continue to work with her, or did you tell her, like, sister, we are not charging $60,000 for this?
I said, sister, we are not charging $60,000. And the response I got was, yes, we are. And I said, okay, well, we're going to have an issue here because, like, my job, and I think anybody's job in management, is to coach, right?
Yeah.
And provide advice and feedback. And I'm not going to be doing my job correctly. And as a manager, we have a fiduciary duty to be putting our clients in specific situations that support them and help them grow so they don't get sued and so they don't have their, like, circling around social media saying XYZ. Like, it's your job to do that. And I think a lot of managers don't know that and also forget that. So I do think that that's what has set me apart in space. But yeah, she didn't like that. And I kind of just slowly weaseled my way out of working with her. I'm not going to look like a fool pitching you. Really. And I've done my job to try and educate you on what you should and shouldn't do. And if you want to go elsewhere, you can do it, but you'll be doing it on your own.
Right. What if she were to have said, like, okay, we're not charging 60K, fine. What am I charging? What should she have been charging, in your opinion? Obviously, there's a lot of variables, but
I think for this specific influencer, yes, she had a lot of followers, but we all know followers don't equate to influence, if you want to call it that, or engagement of any sorts. And then she was buying followers on likes on top of that, which again just harms your page even more. So I think, like, to be honest, we should have chopped like 3 zeros off the rate she was asking, which was like, I'm under $1,000, which is crazy, but again, you have to kind of like peel back the layers, and like influencer marketing is about having influence, whether it be top of funnel, which is purely for brand awareness, or middle or bottom of funnel, which is like sales and brand awareness. You have to drive some sort of ROI for a brand with whatever that brand is wanting to drive. And if you can't do that, you don't have influence, so your rates aren't justified. Like, it's really that simple. And I think that's why people get confused, because, like, just think about it logically and it will make sense. And if you charge certain rates, you need to go and build the community that makes sense for that rate. So, yeah.
Guys, just like listen to the discrepancy of numbers there. Like, $60,000 is what she thought versus what she should have been charging, which was like under $1,000. And so I think something super cool that you guys can take note of is it's not just about the number on the follower count anymore. Everybody has 100,000. Everybody has 1 million at this point. It's more so, how does that million interact with you? What are they doing? Do you have a community, or do you just have a bunch of followers that like your content? So I love that.
It's also like, as a manager, right, in this space, we make money when these influencers make money. So, like, I don't want to tell you to charge $600, but I'm just being realistic with you, So, like, that's another important thing to think about when you're working. Like,
Okay, amazing. So, kind of branching off of that question, ego-driven influencers, obviously. I think there's two kinds. There's ones who are actually just not aware of like reality and have an ego. And then I think there are ones that are aware and they don't care and they still have an ego. And so the ones who think they're like, Kim Kardashian, this is like their world and we're just living in it. Obviously, you kind of explained what that looks like, but more so, how do you deal with that behavior from a management standpoint, even if it's not about rates per se, but just in general, like those super demanding, I don't want this brand, I want this brand. No one knows that brand. I want the big brand. Like, how do you deal with that from a management standpoint, or do you not, and you fire them as a client?
Great question. I think that ego-driven influencers, in my experience, have never really been kind of around the conversation of I want this brand and I don't want that brand, only because I think anyone can work with any brand nowadays. You can be a UGC creator and you can work with Nike. So I don't think that, personally, I've never had to experience that. It's more like in situations, in moments. And I, for example, used to be a director of marketing in a clothing company called Lacey Fit. And there was, obviously, we did a lot of shoots and we were working with a lot of different models and a lot of different influencers. And there was a couple influencers of particular, that we worked with quite frequently that just seemed to really live in their own world and like be 3 hours late for shoots and just like think that nobody's waiting on them. Or there was one experience that we had with like a hairstylist, and this influencer just seemed to think that she was Kim Kardashian or like God's gift to earth, and just like was on her phone all the time. And she once made this extremely rude comment to the hairstylist, which is kind of like where she thinks she can just say anything because she is who she is, which is just like not realistic. Like, we're all human and we're all equal. So I don't know where that came from, but she was getting her hair done by the hairstylist, and I was sitting at the other end of the room, like on my laptop working because I was like organizing the shoot. And the hairstylist was talking about a date that she went on and about the guy and how the guy was like an actor. He was like in the creative space. That was his job. And the hairstylist was saying like, he needs personally somebody with a little bit more of a stable income, which that's a whole other conversation and like each to their own. But then the influencer in the chair literally said like out loud, oh yeah, like I wouldn't want to date a hairstylist either for that same reason. And it's just kind of like, yeah, like
as she's doing her hair.
Right. So it was just moments. And we all, when we heard that, we were like, did that really just come out of your mouth? In the room with a bunch of people in there, like, we're trying to help you. Like, we're trying to make you look
stressed.
Like, it was just, and that happened a lot with that specific person and there's been many shoots that I've worked with this person over a multitude of different brands, but just like some people really think that they're just that. They're like, you should, every woman should have that it girl confidence about you, but that doesn't mean that you get to sit up there and think that you're up here and everybody else is down here. And it's just crazy, like the limelight that some of these influencers feel that they constantly have on them, and they can act like this and say like this and do this and do that. I'm just like, oh, okay, well, just sit down. Like, not even Kim Kardashian is that good. Like, we're all normal. Just sit and be a pleasure to work with.
I was gonna say, like, be excited. Like, just be happy and be excited.
Be lucky that you're on the shoot. Be lucky that you're getting paid. Be lucky that you're a working model. Like, just be thankful for all of that, you know? But it just goes in one ear and out the other with some others.
I think I literally would never be able to do that. I think I would literally be like, what the fuck did you just say?
Yeah. I mean, I had to keep my cool. I heard it and I was like,
okay, keep typing.
Yeah. And I was like, how am I going to handle this? Like, what am I going to do? Like, who am I going to say? Like, I'm going to have to make the hairstylist feel okay. Like, are they going to be stressed? Like, are they going to take it to heart? I'm clearly going to have to say something to the influencer and just be like, you can't say that, like it was very insensitive. And like, and I did. And she was just like, and I was like, okay. This is all
okay. And we're rolling.
Yep.
Okay. So as you started building your career, of course, obviously you have a personal brand to get more people aware of who you are, giving tips, all that stuff. So as your personal brand grew, did you ever experience those people, influencers, or even yourself kind of having that, like, you have less followers than me, so how are you going to help me? I think sometimes people look at followers for some reason as a sign of credibility. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it means absolutely nothing. And so did you ever have that experience, one, with someone else, or two, even with yourself in your head of like, I'm going to work with this influencer that has, 3 million followers. Is she going to think that, like, or treat me differently as if I'm not the one getting her these deals, kind of thing?
I've never experienced that personally, only because I think that, one, I don't tolerate that behavior. And I also think a lot of people find me, kind of similar to yourself. Like, I post all the tips and information on the creator economy and branding and personal branding and influencer marketing on TikTok. So I think I don't have that many followers on TikTok, and the follow account to me doesn't matter. Like, I'm just trying to help. So people often will come to me and be like, hey, like, I have 1 million followers. I need your help. You know what you're doing, kind of thing. And I'm like, wow, I feel flattered. Like, that's really sweet. I'm just talking about what I do day in and day out. So no, I haven't ever experienced that. Thankfully, fingers crossed, I never do.
Yes, I know, right? I'm gonna jinx them.
Yeah. But the answer to your second question, yes. I mean, like, I work with a lot of athletes, and I think when I first started working with them, I was like, holy shit, like these are not just regular people. You hear all these stories about them, like they could be this, they could be that. Like, let's be real, I'm a female, I'm in sport, they're gonna try and come at me for the reasons that we don't want them to come at me. Like, how am I gonna handle that? So there was definitely that fear. I think I learned, like I remember when I worked with my first athlete, I was like shaking in my boots. I was like, holy shit, like, how am I going to act? Like, I have to act like cool, like I know what I'm doing, like blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. I had no freaking clue what I was
doing. Like, what am I doing? I don't know.
Oh my God, no clue. But then I just like, now I'm kind of like I wouldn't say very seasoned in it, but I've worked with a good amount of people with a sizable following, and they're just people, and they want to be treated like people. They don't want to be treated like LeBron James or Ja Morant, which is not a good example, but like they don't want to be treated like that. They just want to be treated like normal. So I think if you can look at them from that frame of mind, it'll help you. Well, that's what helps me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I love that. All right. So again, as you're growing, now you are where you are with this amazing career and all these different opportunities. Let's take it back to like one moment that you can think of that was like your most insecure moment in your career so far. And what was that? And then how did you work through that? Whether it was the mindset piece, what action did you take? Things of that nature.
Great question. My motto for my entire career, and I would say if you want to call it success of my career, has been fake it till you make it. Like half the time I got thrown into influencer marketing. I had no clue what I was doing, like at all. I got thrown into like branding and partnerships with, athletes and celebrities just because it came across my desk. I had no clue what I was doing. Like, I think one time I was working with an athlete for a partnership, and I had no idea what rates to pitch. I had no idea. Oh, there was one time I was literally on a call, and this may not answer your question, but I just think it's funny because like I have no idea what I'm doing. I was on a call and they asked, like, when you work with athletes or like when you're like working with anybody, you're supposed to know a lot about them, because then if the brand asks like, where did they go to school? What year did they graduate? Like, what position did they play? Like, just anything about them. Like, you're supposed to know that, whether you directly work with the athlete or you're just doing like a one-off deal. Like, that's your job. And I remember I was on a call one time and the brand literally was like, what school did he graduate from? And I was like, and I literally Googled like on the call. I was like, hold on 2 seconds. Like, I'm confusing it or whatever. I don't know how I fixed it, to be honest, but and then I was like, oh, like UConn, blah, blah, blah. But there has been so many moments where another one, I was sitting at a group of, I was sitting in Chicago at the United Center with a group of like really big execs in sport. They're all like going back and forth, bantering about this stat and this person and this reporter. And I have no clue. Like, I'm good at the branding and the partnerships piece. Right. I didn't grow up here. I didn't follow any kind of like sport. I don't even know a lot of athletes unless they're put in front of my face.
Right.
They're going back and forth on all these things. And they came to me with this question. It was like, I don't know, I can't even remember what the question was. And I was just like stunned, like a deer in the headlights, because I didn't know how to answer the question. Like, I don't have that information and knowledge. So a lot of the time, like, if that happens to me, I'm just like, oh yeah, like, okay, but I'll figure it out. But I just always remember, like, just fake it, just fake it, just fake it. Like, you'll figure it out. Like, just fake it till you make it. Yeah. It's worked so far. Oh yeah.
I literally feel like if I was asked that, I'd be like, I would start immediately sweating and trying to stall as I'm like Googling the answers. Yeah. But I'm like, I have no fucking idea. But he went to, so yeah, I totally feel that. I think too, a lot of the times everyone's waiting to have all the answers before obviously they do something or they dive into something. But I think the only real way to know what answers you need to know is to just go and just do it. And then you're like, okay, next time I should probably know this stuff. Yeah. and so on and so forth. So I love that. Okay.
For sure.
So it could be the influencer that we talked about first, but what is the most outlandish price someone has tried to charge when you've been working with them? Where you're like, it could have been that girl that we talked about in the beginning or someone different.
$300,000.
You're fucking kidding me.
No. And it was like they were being pitched to me. So like I wasn't working with them.
Oh, they were saying you paid them $300,000.
Yeah, for a brand. And I was like, okay. Like, do you want my like CEO salary, or like, I don't know where you think that money is coming from. At least with the brands I've worked with, like there are brands out there that have that budget,
of course.
Your L'Oreal's, like all that kind of stuff. But it also, like, and that's where I could go on about rates. I'm just like, $300,000. Like, are you going to give me an ROI for that? Like, am I going to see the return in investment? Like, what am I going to get for that $300,000? What's the quality of content going to like it? That's just astronomical to me. And that is like another conversation of like, who is coming up with this? Because like, it's not the influencer, or maybe it is, but like from my point of view, I don't think an influencer is sitting down being like, I demand $300 for a video. Like, I think that's, and this is something I talk about all the time, management. I think management are really skewing the creator economy at the moment and like cannibalizing it in a way. And I think that's something that isn't talked about enough. And I think that's going to change going into 2024. But like, yeah, 300K is just.
So now in your area of expertise, obviously 60K was like celebrity type of, whatever. 300. Are we talking like that is someone of like superstardom would charge? You can say like you could have 5 million followers, but it would have to be the engagement and the profile of the person.
Yeah, I think it's so hard because like 60K, like that was a couple years ago. And like even celebrities were charging, more than that. But that, I think why I say celebrities is because that influencer was acting like she was one when she wasn't. Whereas like transparently, like 300K for working with a celebrity is not a lot. Like endorsement deals with athletes are millions of dollars. Endorsement deals with, your J-Lo's or like your Ryan Reynolds or whoever it is, like millions and millions of dollars. Like, but she is still stardom, like this influencer. But I also just think like, and maybe, I'm wrong, but I just think there's a lane that if you're an influencer, you're an influencer, and you can bleed into the lane of celebrity, and you can for sure rebrand yourself. But what is the value that you're providing? Like that's how I really look at influencing nowadays is like, what are you teaching people? Like you have to, and I think that's another shift that we're going to see. Like, we're not really just looking for lifestyle influencers who share their life anymore. Like, that's not relatable to the general public. Look at the economic like situation that we're in. Like, no one is sitting out there like, I don't know, going to freaking fancy lunches and like shopping. We're not doing that. Most people are like living paycheck to paycheck and figuring out how they're going to feed their kids. And we're all worried about like the situation overseas. Like, let's actually be realistic with what's going on in the world. So I think that there's going to be a shift even with like who we follow and whatnot. But to answer your question, like, I still think that rate is astronomical for this specific influencer. I just think like that's a purchase of a home, for a TikTok post. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got 4 more. So now that we're kind of diving into like the business sector of things, right? So let's say someone is an influencer, maybe they have management or maybe they don't. How would someone know what to charge as an influencer? And I know obviously this is like a very, big topic you can probably talk about for hours, but in the sense of, I think a lot of people, number one, maybe in your opinion, what number of followers would consist of someone of being an influencer? I know now there's like all these names like nano, micro, like all this stuff, but an actual influencer that could potentially get paid for brand deals, where does that start follower wise for you? Like, do you think?
I really think anyone can be an influencer. I
Yeah.
think it's the level, if you want to call it that. I think anyone can charge for UGC. That's technically influence to me. You're creating content for a brand then to use to hopefully sell their product. I think if we're talking like rates, I've worked with influencers who have 25,000 followers and generate thousands of dollars worth of sales. I've worked with influencers who have millions of worth of, of followers and generate hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of sales. Like, I truly believe anyone, and I want to empower, creators that you don't have to wait till you have 50,000 followers or 150 or whatever the number is in your head. Like, you can start now. I think the question that people need to ask themselves is like, what can you drive for a brand? What conversion can you drive? Because that's where I think rates come in. I don't think you can base rates anymore off of your engagement rate, because one, that's just not realistic for driving return on investment for brands. And that can be bought. So like, we don't know if that's real or not. So I really truly believe that like, if you can convert and if you can have influence over somebody, and if you can share with a brand that like, hey, I love this product, I talk about it all the time, you guys gave me an affiliate code and I've driven, like $1,000 or $2,000 worth of sales, like clearly they have influence. So I think that person can charge for it in whatever capacity they deem they want to. So it's such a never-ending topic and discussion that I could like go over, but I don't think you should wait. Like, everybody says when you're in social media and creating content, like, don't wait, just start. Like, truly, just pitch yourself. It's a numbers game. That's all it is. It's like, you're gonna get rejected. I get rejected. You know what I mean? Like, just get used to it and start pitching yourself, because eventually, if you do it enough, you will come across a brand that sees your value. Obviously, you need to create content that lives up to that. Like, everyone and their dog is an influencer nowadays. Like, do you make a splash in this space? Like, is your content good? Like, ask yourself all those questions, but you can do it. You don't need to wait till a certain follower amount.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing there, guys, is number one, it's not just about the followers, right? But the other thing too that she said is, what can you bring to the table for the brand, right? Like, why would a brand pay you? Is the money coming back? Is the exposure coming back? Do you have a community or do you just have followers? Because I think now we're about to see those are two completely different things. Okay. Why do most people, in your opinion, either not get brand deals or they're having trouble getting brand deals? Is it the amount of outreach? Is it what they're saying? Is it their content, or is it a mix of a multitude of things?
I think we need to look at it in two different categories, like influencers and then management, because I think influencers may not be getting brand deals due to quality of content would probably be my top point there.
Yeah.
The content that you see on social media nowadays is impeccable. It is amazing. And if you cannot,
it is crazy. I'm like, every time I feel like I one up, I'm like, what is that?
Yeah. There are people like with amazing quality videos, with amazing transitions, like they are putting time, energy, and effort into creating content, and it's paying off for them. So if you can't genuinely compete with that, and if it also put yourself in the brand's shoes, like if you're offered this and your content and you don't think yours is better, like let's be
not better,
so I think that is something with influencers that they need to be mindful of. I think what we just spoke about with generating some sort of result, whether it be exposure, brand awareness, or driving sales, that brand getting a return on their ad spend, or ROAS is what we call it in brands. I think those are probably the two main reasons. I also think your pitch is really important, like how you're pitching yourself. Are you pitching yourself enough? What does your pitch email look like? Is it super long? Is it providing at least one or two examples of what content you want to create for that brand? Have you done your research on that brand to see like maybe what products they just came out with? Are you familiar with the products? Have you used them? Can you pitch them an idea that's going to help their marketing? Like, you always want to think, how can I help this brand? Because their goal is to get more customers. That's how brands make money. It's not about like returning and repeat customers keeps a brand going. It keeps like the engine going. You need to be the gas, which is new customers. So like, how can you help this brand get new customers? One, it's by impacting your current audience if you've never worked with them before, and then you growing as a creator as well. Because when you get more customers and you start talking about a brand that you genuinely endorse and love, that funnels back to that brand. It's more gas in the tank. So think about it from that, and like point of view. And then I think management is sometimes the reason that the influencers don't get deals. I think, as I said at the start, like managers are only paid when influencers are paid. And if you work, within a big agency, managers are always going to prioritize influencers with bigger rates. And if you're a smaller creator, like you're going to really struggle to land deals unless you're getting a lot of inbound. Even so, like managers will probably still prioritize those with a bigger following because that means their check looks bigger, or a bigger rate because their check looks bigger. I think managers are really difficult to work with nowadays. Like I personally, I work, in-house for a beauty brand, and I hate working with managers because this space is all about relationship building. It's all about getting to know someone. And I'm sent back cold emails from managers when I want to, like, I've just paid your influencer $10,000 for a video and I just want to run it for 30 days as an ad for usage, and you're charging me another $3,000 for it. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to do that. I just want, like, just work with me here. Like, I just paid you a good amount, but they will say no because they want to get paid. And then even deeper than that, like they'll say no to even offers because if it's only going to give them a $200 check or a $300 check, they don't want to waste their time, doing it. But it could be, $1,100 or $1,200 for the influencer. They might not even tell that influencer about that deal. So I think that's something to be really, really mindful of if you have management is, are they doing their job and are they actually preventing you from landing deals, and are they giving brands a sour taste in their mouth? Because if if your manager is not pleasant to work with, I don't care how great the influencer is. Like, I don't want to work with you. So I'm just not going to work with you. And I think a lot of influencers don't know that because managers are rude. They're so rude. Yes. Like, I'm just a person. I have a budget and I'm trying to make my numbers and my goals as a brand. Like, let's work together. Let's not be rude.
Also, too, you guys, something that I see a lot of, and I'm sure she has seen a lot of, is the copy and paste emails to these brands are not going to work, especially if you are a small creator, right? So all the things that she said about, like, do you know the brand? Do you know any new products? Like, pitch them an idea. Like, show them that you have taken time to care about bringing the brand something for them to give you something, aka money, products, etc. Okay. What is, I think we talked about this a little bit, but what is the worst negotiation you've ever done, you've ever seen, you've ever been a part of? And what, now in your experience, should influencers keep in mind when they are negotiating? Because at the end of the day, not every email or every number, that first number is going to be the final number.
Yeah. I was messaging you before this being like, I love negotiating. I think it's my skill, like blah, blah, blah. And I really do. I think that, like, I love negotiating. I just love, like, banter and talking and, like, if you tell me no, like, let me see what I can get out of you. Like, come on, like, give me
let me try again.
Yeah. When I first started, though, I remember I pitched this rate thinking like it was so high for this influencer, and then I pitched it and it got accepted like straight away. And that's the worst thing you can do in negotiating, is pitching a rate that's like so appealing to a brand that they just accept it. Because in my opinion, negotiations should be going back and forth for at least 2 to 3 emails. Like, you should go in with a rate, and this is a skill. Like, I like to tell creators, like, if they're pitching themselves or work, managing themselves, have 3 tiers of pricing. One price is like what you're always going to go in with your rate, pending like the budget the brand may have. So I always advise, like, ask the brand if they have a budget and what that budget looks like for working with you before giving your rates. Never send your rates or your media kit before a brand even talks about contracting you, because you're pigeonholing yourself. You could be asking for a rate of 1,000 and they were thinking in their head that you're going to charge 5,000. So, like, always ask them what their budget is for working with them. And if they don't give you that budget, that's fine. Just go in with a really high rate, like your top tier rate is what I like to say, which is what you think you're not going to get. So, like, let's say $15,000, like that might be very high and you've never seen that or had that once or twice, I would always go in with a super high rate, because you're never going to get, minus that other time I just said, like, you're never going to get the rate that you pitch. A brand is always going to want to lowball you. So go in super high, see what they come back with, then go back again, still higher than that rate, and just justify why you're asking for that rate. If there is high demand to work with you. And again, like, this shit doesn't have to be real or like true. Just say it to like make it sound
just
real.
fucking say it, okay?
Literally, just like, oh, there's a lot of demand to work with me right now. You might not have any demand, but they don't know. So just say it, you know, like, my rates are higher because it's Q4. Q4, you can always charge more. There's also a really high demand to work with me right now. If you have conversion data like LTK and Amazon storefront, you can show how much conversions, as I mentioned, you know, at the start, that you're driving. Share that information to justify that rate of why you're asking for $7,000 or $8,000 or whatever the rate looks like. Like, use the tools in your toolkit to work with these brands and show them like, hey, I can drive sales for you, but I'm worth X, Y, Z. So those would probably be my tips. And then have like a baseline number that you won't go below. So whether it be 3,000 or 4,000. But I will say, when you start doing more brand deals, it makes other brands think that you convert. And it looks like you are worth spending money on. So if you're an influencer and you do very little brand deals and you want to start making more money, start taking the lower brand deal options and just have collabs on your page, because then other brands look at it and they're like, oh, like, they're working. Like, they must convert. Like, let me reach out.
Yeah, I love that. I also think too, you guys, something that now I think, especially before the last question, is if you're really trying to make money in influencer marketing, even UGC, etc., and you get paid by any brand, whether it's big or small, like, treat that like it is a $300,000 deal. Create the content that is quality, even do a little extra. I see too many influencers get paid and then the content is half-assed, shitty, because all they wanted to do was get paid. Don't be that person. Be the person that's like, I'm going to go above and beyond, even though I didn't get paid as much as I wanted, because it shows that you care about your craft, right? So last question, it's kind of like a dual-ended question, but I think it will help a lot of people, especially in Q4, is number one, the power of branding, personal branding, right? And then number two, moving into 2024, what do you think is going to be the trend of what brands are looking for? I'm going to tell you what I think, and you tell me if I'm way off or if I'm close. I think a lot of people in this 2023 and moving forward have a lot of followers. You can do almost anything and get followers, like anything. And so what I see is that I used to enjoy going to my favorite influencers page and binging, because I felt like I was in it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting that makeup. I'm doing it like her. I know how she feels. And I feel like a lot of influencers lost the ability to create human connection. Yeah. And so a lot of people are like, I'm dopamine tapped out because I just see sales, commission, all this stuff. Yeah. And you're not actually telling me anything fun about like making it fun. So talk about the power of a true personal brand, and then what you think brands are looking for, you know, within 2024. But I have to mention this. I don't know if you've heard about it. There's this thing called faceless marketing going around, where people are trying to make money and pop off by never showing their face.
Wow.
So could it work? I mean, sure, maybe. I think, though, the big thing here that people are missing is human connection. How do you build a community? So go ahead.
That's interesting. I'm going to dive into that. Curious now. Personal branding, man. Personal branding is like, if you have to tell me if there's one important thing for anybody, anyone, stay-at-home mom, like working a 9-to-5, whatever it is, you need a personal brand. Like, even if you don't want it, like, you need it. And if you think about it, we're in a digital space. And I also want people to think about this, like, when you're going for a job, or when you're online dating, or when you are doing anything in life and you meet somebody new, what is the first place you go? Where do you go to look them up? You want to know more about them. Oh, I met a really cool person at a coffee shop. Like, we usually ask to exchange Instagrams more so than we ask to exchange nowadays. Like, we want to know more about that person. And if that person doesn't have some sort of a brand, a personal brand online, it makes us raise a little red flag. And some of you might be
suspect. Like, who are you?
Exactly. And some people might be like, no, like, I don't care. Like, truly, like, let's be real. We're all online. And I think the having a personal brand is so empowering. I think that, I mean, I'm kind of a perfect example of having a personal brand. Like, you reached out to me because I have a personal brand. I'm like educated and knowledgeable in this space that people want to know about. And it goes for like, even if you're working a 9 to 5 and you have no, motivation or like inkling to be an entrepreneur or do anything, if you want to go for a new job, right? And you are an expert in your field, but you never post about what you know on LinkedIn, or you never post on TikTok or whatever it is. And there's 100 other applicants in this job search, and there's your potential future employer finds somebody else that maybe isn't as educated as you and isn't as well-versed in this space as you are, but they post on LinkedIn and they look like they know they are. They're clearly going to get the job over you because you don't look like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And as much as that sucks, we have to embrace it. Same goes for if you're a stay-at-home mom and you want to get your kids into, like an expensive private school. Like, you as a mom, as a family, as a unit of a mom and dad or a husband and wife, like, you are a brand for that child wanting to get into that school. And like, I was actually just listening to a podcast yesterday about the power of personal brand by Ed Milet and Jen, gosh, I've forgotten her last name. Jen.
Gottlieb?
Yes. And it's just, they say so many things that are so important about personal branding. Like, I think we underestimate the value of a personal brand. And that's why I would everyone should have it, period.
Yeah.
Full stop. Like, you don't even need to ask questions about it. Just have one.
Just have it.
Yeah.
And then lastly, what do you think brands, companies are going to be looking for in 2024 as far as creators, influencers? I think a lot of people right now are in the headspace of like, I want to be an influencer, but I think I want to be also in that trajectory of like that public eye. And I think in order to do that, they're going to be looking for something a little bit different.
Yeah, I think at least from like my point of view with the brand that I work with, like, we're looking for creators that are advocates for the brand without having to be paid to be advocates for the brand. I want to work with influencers that have a creative spin on how they can help us. Like, they want to act like they work for the brand, they're employees for the brand. Even if you don't want to think of yourself that way, like, when you collab with us, like, let's figure it out together. Like, your audience the best. I'm not going to sit here and give you a brief that says do XYZ. Like, you tell me what you think is going to resonate based on the marketing objectives that I have for that brand and the goals that I want to achieve. Then let's make it work together. I think that influencers really need to understand the power of like posting organically. And I understand this whole like, conversation and mantra around like, know your worth and only be paid for what they're, like posting and blah, blah, blah. Like, cool, I get it. But at the same time, you need to create trust and credibility with your audience. And if you are randomly just posting about an eyebrow serum that you've never spoken about before at all, and then you're asking people to buy it from you and you have hashtag ad on it, your audience is going to be like, okay, I know this is an ad, and now I like don't really trust you about this serum. And then if you start doing that more and more and more, they're going to be like, you're just trying to make money off us. So it doesn't build your credibility either. And I think that that's what influencers forget. Like, if you talk about things organically to your audience and you tell a story because you actually endorse a product, that you will win in both areas. You will win because the brand will want to work with you and you're driving money for them. And you will win with your audience because you're being real and relatable and you're putting them onto a product that's going to better their life or better their beauty routine.
Yeah.
So I think organic sharing and taking the affiliate, partnerships approach first, I'm a huge believer in that. I think it's so, so important. And I just think like creators really need to learn, kind of like you said, like we need to get back to storytelling and just being relatable and like actually sharing about your day-to-day life and just going back to being raw and real and helping this. We tend to forget the climate that we live in and what's going on in the world. We're so like desensitized to it. And that's because of Western media as well. Like we just need to be normal and like treat each other.
Isn't it crazy? We have to like tell people just be a normal person.
God, it's so hard. Like, just be nice. Just
Be normal.
live with kindness and like love God and like everything. Everything will work out for you. I promise. But like,
literally. Okay, amazing. I love that. All right, so before we end, tell them obviously if they want to find you, follow you, if they want to be in your network, in your aura, where can they find you? What can they join? All the things.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram. It's just Jessie Sloan. I post a lot more on Instagram, like my day-to-day life and just like personal stuff. Obviously, you can find me on TikTok. I'm Jessica_Sloan. I post all about creator economy, branding, partnerships, working with celebrities and athletes, and anything about influencer marketing and how to monetize your social media. And then I also endorse a company that was created by a friend of mine. It's called Aura Network. It is such an amazing hub for anybody in the creator space. I am a member of it purely for my own knowledge and research. I meet a lot of creators in there and a lot of managers that I then pitch to for the brand that I work for. So they also have a legal resource in there. There's a lawyer. So if you have any questions about contracts or just like where the space of the creator economy is going, there's an accountant in there. There's webinars with C-suite execs, people who have built businesses and sold them for $20 million. There's managers, there's brand contacts there's literally anything you need in there. So that would probably be the other place I would recommend. But
oh my gosh, you guys, yes, if you are in that space, that's the place to be. It was so exciting talking to you. I love all of the info. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. That was it. We brought a little bit of gossip and a little bit of boardroom, but more than anything, you guys, you will stick out when you learn how to, number one, be consistent, bring human connection, and want to, yes, of course, make money, but make that community with your audience. Because there's nothing that will repay you more than being honest, raw, real, authentic, than having an audience that trusts you. So thank you so much, sister. I appreciate you. And until next time, we will see you guys later. Bye, y'all. Okay, now if I only knew how to like maybe stop this. Oh.